What's up, guys? Our Wrestling Podcast back at you with another episode. This is Dave Vicious, along with Just the Total Package, and Craig the British Bulldog, bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. Today's topic, missed opportunities, the invasion angle in WWE. For audio fans, give us a listen at Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our Wrestling Podcast. And on social media, can you give us a solid with a follow on Instagram at O.W.P 2019 on Facebook or at Our Wrestling Podcast? Jess, we've talked about this on and off throughout several podcasts about how much better this could have been for so many reasons. Why are we doing the invasion angle now?
Okay, let's everybody calm down right now. What you just said, you said it all.
I'm
all right there. So the thing is it could have been better, but not for what a lot of people
100%.
say. That's why I wanted this to be a missed opportunities episode, because we like to, at the end, we freeform a little bit. Dave's going to read some notes and control us. And then afterwards, we're going to freeform it. I think that most people's fantasy booking of this angle is just forgetting like the large obstacles that they had to overcome. Well, you know what they should have done? What's that? They should have had Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg. Okay, I'm like, what you're saying right now is a lot.
You need to settle down.
Yeah, you need to settle down, because there's a ton of legal stuff that was in place after the buyout happened that couldn't happen. So I get in just one breath, you could be like, you know what would make the invasion angle better? Sign everybody. I'm like, that's not possible. So what I like our missed opportunities to be is we will fantasy book a little bit, but we got to kind of stay within the. You see what I'm doing right now? You know what this is?
Yeah.
Parameters.
Square.
We're going to stay in the
parameters.
Don't be a... Sorry.
Square.
Triangle. I'm like, no, Craig, it's a goddamn circle.
pentagon?
You can't see.
5 syllables. 3 words.
So you have to
TV
stay
show.
in the parameter. So missed opportunities is different from any other bullshit fantasy booking podcast that you might see that I'm going to do this to. That we want
Why
to
couldn't they just get
to,
Hogan? What?
Exactly. We have to play within the rules here. So this is a hot topic, Dave. This is a super hot
I think it's hot. I think it's a hot take because it won't most people
wrestling
won't take it this
topic.
way, right?
So like we're going to talk about. Dave's got some notes to read. We're going to read what actually happened, and then we're going to at the end just be like, you know what? Maybe if we tweakity-deakity a little bit of this and a little bit of that, maybe it would have been better.
There was still opportunity for
We're going to be
sure,
realistic about it because we're the greatest wrestling podcast of all time. So go ahead, Dave.
That's what I heard.
Good night.
I'm
out here.
all time.
I don't know why.
The idea of a supercard featuring the top 2 promotions of the Monday Night War was considered to be a dream match scenario in the eyes of many wrestling fans, as it would allow the fans to see which promotion would be superior in the kayfabe moment. The angle began with Mr. McMahon's son, Shane McMahon, announced as part of the storyline on WWF's Raw is War in the final episode of WCW's Nitro, which merged into a simulcast that night, that he had bought WCW. Shane, not Vince.
The deal is finalized with WCW. And the name on the contract does say McMahon. However, the contract reads Shane McMahon.
Oh my God! I don't believe it!
That's right. I now own WCW.
The contract does say McMahon, but it says Shane McMahon.
So already I'll stop there and I'll pause it.
This was good, but
this is all fucking great because
awesome.
You know what? I remember watching that episode. Like
Insanity.
And there wasn't a lot of people that were part of the dirt sheets or whatever. We kind of were. So we knew like the day before that WCW was bought. And Vince bought the library for nothing. Like, I think they said initially it was like 2.4, but when it was said and done with all the rights fees or whatever, it was like 3 point something. He bought all of that history for a little over $3 million and made it back, by the way, probably on the first DVD that he released, which was the Rise and Fall of WCW. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it's crazy
Right.
pants. Like,
And all
what
that
happened?
footage was fine.
So it was
Yeah.
amazing. The simulcast that we watched was amazing. WCW was in the dumpster, right? What a lot of people, when you talk about the buyout, a lot of people always talk now, especially like little fucking 20-year-old wrestling fans that have no idea that you could easily just log into the fucking network and educate yourself. They will not do that. What they will do is they will watch WWE produced documentaries and kind of get led astray.
Yeah.
They want you to believe that
Yeah.
it was the height of the NWO era and WCW was just so popular and then Vince bought them out. That's not the way it fucking happened. WCW was bullshit for like the last 2 years. It was declining. It was
It was
bad.
bad.
There was nobody that was worth a goddamn, which will play into Dave going forward or whatever. Like there was nothing to pull from them to make this invasion angle worth a goddamn. There was nothing. WCW in 99 and 2000 was awful. And their ratings were declining and their house show was declining. Their house show attendance declined by like 80%. Their pay-per-views were declining by almost that number as well. Like, so that's a company in death.
They were
in
getting
decline.
like 1,000 people.
Like
But
everything was so bad.
We saw the last Nitro together, I think, didn't we? Am I
Yes, we did.
thinking
Yeah.
correctly?
No, we did.
And I remember we were going skipping back and forth, and when it was absolutely simulcast together, and we were just like, "Holy shit!"
It was a big
It
moment.
was unbelievable.
Yeah. So go ahead,
see
Dave. Sorry,
McMahon
I just
on
wanted I wanted to bring it. This
you're good.
moment was probably the last moment. Everything that happened after this, I was like, of course it went the way it went. Of course it did. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah,
You know,
it's Vince. What are you gonna do? The WWF had effectively doubled the size of its roster through the acquisition of WCW, and as a result, the company believed that there was not enough screen time for many of the new roster members. To alleviate some of these concerns, the original plan was to find a time slot on TNN, later named Spike TV, and now known as the Paramount Network, to continue running WCW as a separate entity, with WWF controlling SmackDown on UPN and WCW controlling Raw as War on TNN. These plans fell through, and no television networks would touch WCW because of its reputation for losing money. Just silly. Like, you know who's running it now, but whatever. I have a
disagree with
problem
that. You know, I cut and copied from Wikipedia. I know people are going to be like, well, don't trust that. I'm like, yeah, it's a good base when I'm trying to make a topic. But like, I think that's a false statement. Like, I don't think they stayed away from it because it had reputation of losing money. Even WCW Nitro on its last week got like 3.0 or 2.8, 3.0. That's a massive cable rating for back then.
Somebody
Dude.
would
Jesus
have
Christ,
somebody
dude.
would have touched it.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
disagree
somebody
with
would've touched
that. That was just a Wikipedia bullshit that someone kind of came in there and edited. But I mean, like, still though, they stayed away from it because WWF was going to spread itself too thin, and that was the key. Is like
Right.
it was already
That's the
spreading itself
difference.
too thin. Yeah,
Yeah. This led to several run-in appearances of WCW wrestlers during Raw as War and SmackDown over the months following WrestleMania X7. Fun fact, Lance Storm was the first WCW wrestler to appear on WWE TV.
which is crazy. So listen, I love Lance Storm. We all do. Agreed.
Yeah.
If he's your first guy that comes over from WCW, you're in trouble.
Still illegal individual. Wait a minute. It's Lance Storm. It's Lance Storm. What the hell is? He's a WCW. And there's Blackman's a winner. What the hell is that all about?
And the lethal weapon, Steve Blackman.
What? Lance Storm's a WCW wrestler.
Like
Yeah,
you did,
you're-
like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I love Lance Storm, but like if he's the guy that leads the charge, I'm like, okay, what did you expect to happen after that?
Let's be clear about this, Craig. Jump in any time, but this was the first post Raw or post Monday Night War appearance as Lance Storm, because I think some of the biggest things, the issues that we're kind of leaving out, besides the fact of the AOL contracts not being done, so all of those big names are still sitting at home. The biggest one is like Vince already acquired a ton of the cruiserweights at this point, so like Jericho was there, all these guys were there, like Guerrero was there, all the people that could make a splash, right?
Noel was there.
I mean,
So-
Saturn was there.
what we learned from the WCW is they bought WCW, but they didn't buy the contracts. So
Right.
they had to renegotiate with all these guys, and anyone worth any name
Sure.
was already getting paid to sit home, and that they were not going to pay the money they were going to pay. So in essence, they just bought a name and they did not buy the roster. So
And I might be jumping ahead on this of what they could have done, because I know we're reading from here, but they had so much WCW talent that had come over not too long ago that they had signed. maybe you go. Oh,
Yeah, they already got the
along.
best. Yeah, exactly.
But use that for the invasion angle is what I'm saying, right? So this is something to kind of plant the seed on as we keep going. At King of the Ring on June 24th, the WCW champion Booker T interfered during a triple threat main event match for the WWF Championship and almost cost Stone Cold Austin the title. In June of same year, the angle grew intensely as other WWF storylines somewhat abated to make room for the Central Invasion storyline. WCW and ECW merged to form the Alliance and challenge the WWF's control over the wrestling industry. Up until this point, the WCW contingent were being depicted as malcontent faces rising up against the heel Mr. McMahon because of Mr. McMahon's bluster during the final Nitro broadcast and Shane's usurping of the WCW ownership. I can already see why this is a problem.
Well, and then
Why are
again,
they faces? Like, I don't know.
they finally put the world title on him and Steiner, to Steiner's defense too, when they were dying. Their title reigns meant nothing. Neither did Jarrett's.
They should have done it way sooner. Yeah.
Jarrett, Steiner,
Yeah,
and
Jarrett-
Booker T
Jarrett's
were
too. Yeah.
during the garbage years. So I know people look back
Right.
now and they're like, but Booker T was former WCW champion. He wasn't WCW champion in the height of the NWO or the height of anything like that, guys. He was. So again, no like bad comments against Booker T. We all love him, but it just goes into what Dave's going to read on to, that it wasn't the top quality talent at the time. Was Booker T next in line? 1,000%. But was he a big draw?
Too little, too
No,
little, too
like
little, too
not
late.
at all. Like Steiner wasn't a big draw. They were not big draws. They were dying. WCW was dying, and at the end of 99, 2000, 2001, it was dying. And like those were the champions. Jarrett, Steiner,
And,
Booker T.
and
Unfortunately,
so
not good.
And I don't mean to skip ahead if the notes are here, but I remember saying the rebrand of whatever they fucking did with WCW and that whatever branding they did.
Oh, no,
absolutely
Dave, read it. Dave, read ahead.
stupid,
Craig,
ridiculous.
let Dave go on because we are going to get
So
right into that.
originally, WCW talents were meant to attack strictly heel WWF wrestlers. The strongly negative reactions of the core WWF viewership to the WCW product and talent.
Because it was
however,
WCW
coupled with
mid-carders.
reality-
That's all it was.
A wrestling program tailored to appeal to WWF fans would not come to fruition. It led to the entire WCW contingent being abruptly turned heel, which is what they should have done in the first place. When you're not as over, you're not as big, you should be the heels that are coming in.
But Vince was the
cause
heel in the
problems.
character storyline, and Shane was the face, so they made WCW the face, which you make WCW mid-carders the face against all of the WWF roster, which
could have
like,
easily been rectified, though. Could have easily been rectified. You make
freeform at
Shane's
the end.
already
Freeform at the end, but go on,
Shane's
Dave. Go
already
ahead.
heel, yeah. One example of the heel gimmick: WCW wrestler Diamond Dallas Page, whose first WWF appearance was built over several weeks of a storyline, which was portrayed as an anonymous stalker sending invasive videotapes to then babyface The Undertaker and his wife. In July, the WWF tested the idea of a brand extension between WWF and WCW by branding the final 20 minutes of the July 2nd episode of Raw's War under the
This,
WCW
Craig, is what you're
name,
talking about.
with Scott Hudson and Art Anderson as the announcers in place of Jim Ross and Paul Heyman. Okay, this is fucking stupid. These last two.
Buff Daddy is in the house. WCW Championship on the line. Booker T to the pin right now against Buff Bagwell. We talk about the best
Next, the
WCW has to
challenger
offer.
weighing in at 245 pounds, Buff Bagwell.
Coming up July 22nd, AA at Invasion on pay-per-view. It will be the best of WCW versus the best of the World Wrestling Federation in the inaugural Brawl coming up in just 20 days.
By beating
When
Booker T
can
up,
I ask you a
with
question
Bagwell
real quick,
joining
Dave? I don't
Angle
mean to
and Austin
interrupt you.
attacking
I
Booker T.
don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, good.
He
Can
does.
you guys tell me? Can you tell me when Buff Bagwell ever was a world title contender? Can you tell me at all?
Never.
Yeah. What the
Never.
fuck are we doing? Like, so you have your Booker T representation. He's the WCW champion of the dying years, by the way. And then the thing, they redo all of Raw. They change all the graphics on Raw to WCW, and his challenger is Buff Bagwell. Like, what are you doing? Like,
It
what
makes
are we?
no sense.
Buff Bagwell never challenged for the world
Obviously-
title. He was over in WCW. I'm not saying Buff Bagwell wasn't, but like, I mean, he wrestled for the U.S. title, I'm sure, and television title, but he never wrestled for the world title. Buff Bagwell was never in the main event picture ever. in WCW,
Yeah.
even as
And
the most
obviously,
over as Buff
Jess
Bagwell
shared-
was
Sorry, go ahead,
Scott
Craig.
Jess shared these links too, so we could see them before this.
Yeah, they're horrible.
Before this
Yeah, they're
episode,
terrible.
and I honestly believe it was not Booker's fault. Like, Booker did have a trip and a fall kind of thing, but even from the outset, Buff was trying to do his own thing with Booker. Like in the first 30 seconds, like not feeding him, cutting off everything, all Buff's patheticness, terrible, and blew it for the entire. I know that after this, it becomes been soured on the whole fucking thing. Not Booker T's fault, really.
Yeah,
Buff's
the
fault.
smash was poorly
But why would
received
you
by
bring in the
audience.
mid carders that never pulled the wagon in WCW to begin with, and they
Well,
weren't able? They weren't able to bring anybody else in, which is why do it at all?
Again,
Like
they
why
should,
do it at
they
all?
should have. Well, again, another
And why
scene.
brand
Should
it
have
with a
never been
brand new
title
thing when it?
contention.
What the fuck are we doing? That
Yeah,
whatever they
were
try to
never
do.
the face of WCW.
You don't. WCW is not a title set. It's a brand. It's a way
And
of
it
life.
must have been a money
And
and licensing
that's
thing.
how they should have represented.
Well,
it,
we'll
honestly,
talk about
but
it in the
whatever.
free form. It's because they couldn't get the big
Yeah.
contracts.
We're getting there. We're getting.
But
there.
even fucking put the helicopter logo, or no, actually, no, it was the rebranded shitty. You couldn't even tell it was WCW.
It was the, yeah, it was the
terrible
red
rebrand.
WCW logo. It was
But
terrible.
at least
yeah.
throw that on the
So,
thing. Like, oh
poor-
god, so much. Sorry,
poorly
freeform. Go ahead. Sorry.
poorly reviewed by the attendants in Tacoma.
What? No,
Michael
no.
Landsberg reported that many have called about the worst match ever. On
No,
the
I mean it wasn't.
was.
It wasn't
Raw.
that bad. It was just terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just terrible.
There's been a lot of terrible
Phil
fucking Raw
Friedman,
matches.
Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, WWF wrestlers consisting of the Dudley Boys, Taz, Just Incredible, Rhino, and Raven, all former ECW wrestlers, ran into the ring. After a brief standoff, the WWF cavalry turned around and attacked Kane and Jericho. This prompted Paul Heyman to
good.
leave the announce table and into the ring. After high-fiving the wrestlers, she announced that ECW was entering into the invasion. This should have been
That's
done.
that's exciting. That's exciting, Dave.
Yeah.
Go on.
Heyman talked about how tired he was sitting beside Jim Ross and discussing WCW versus WWF,
Oh,
stating that he felt
this is
that
awesome.
everyone had forgotten about ECW and announced this invasion just got taken to the extreme. Upon seeing a stunned
I
Mr.
will
McMahon
say,
ask what was going on,
that the turn, so they had everybody run in or whatever, and then they did it. They didn't do it in order, and then all of the old WCW guys like slowly turned and looked at the WWF guys, and then the crowd did pop because you want to know why the crowd popped? Not because his angle was working at this point, but because they were like, "Please God, give us anything to save this." And then when
Yeah.
ECW
Right.
became involved, because Paul Heyman was working for WWF at the time,
Kinda
like
cool.
it was like, okay, maybe this will save it,
Something.
and it did not.
Yes.
And
No.
Dave Reed on.
upon seeing a stunned Mr. McMahon ask him what was going on, Shane admitted he was responsible for all the events that had just transpired. Why? You don't have to do that. And
All
announced
the,
that
all the
ECW and
shitty,
WCW merged
mediocre
from the
events that
alliance.
have taken place, I take ownership of. Yeah.
And Stephanie McMahon was ECW's new owner. An inaugural brawl
Stephanie
took place at the Invasion
Because
pay-per-view.
when I think of
Yeah,
when
Stephanie.
I think of extreme, I think of
I
Stephanie
think it's Stephanie.
McMahon. That's great.
One more thing for you. One more. And I'm also personally responsible and privileged to introduce you to the new owner of ECW. I believe you know this person quite well. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Vince's daughter, Stephanie McMahon Housley.
The new owner of WCW. Oh my God! Shane owns WCW, and the princess, Vince's little baby girl.
An inaugural brawl took place at the Invasion pay-per-view where WWF's top star, Stone Cold Steve Austin,
I don't know who he
defected
is,
and
but go
joined
on.
the alliance. I don't know that guy. The next night, Austin claimed he joined the alliance because they appreciated inside Mr. McMahon's hugging of Angle, calling The Rock on the phone as he signs. What is this?
So,
McMahon did
okay,
not
let me tell you
appreciate
what
Austin.
this is. You stop
Yeah,
right now.
Please. This
Stop
is
right
poorly.
To
narrated.
Yeah, Jess sucks.
compound this, to compound the shittiness, at WrestleMania 17, Austin turned heel. Everybody knows that. And he sided with Vince, the guy who he feuded with since 1997. You turned him heel and then turned him face because Triple H got injured in real life, and you knew The Rock was going to go away to film a movie. You knew this was going to happen, but yet you still turned him heel, and then you turned him face again for 2 weeks just so he could
It's
turn
so
heel
weird.
again. Like, it doesn't make any
Right.
sense. This is the problem. And we'll freeform later. Dave, get through these notes so I could fucking punch myself in the
Yeah,
face.
many
Like-
inter-promotional matches occurred during the invasion between the Alliance.
I'm
and the
regretting
WWF.
even doing this topic because I want to fucking
Leading up to
I
the
want to punch
climax, you're
myself.
getting upset of the angle at Survivor Series. The team WWF, The Rock, Chris Jericho, Big Show, and The Undertaker, and Kane defeated Team Alliance, which was Stone Cold, Kurt Angle, Rob Van Dam, Booker T, and Shane McMahon. Jesus Christ.
Kurt Angle he just announced it. The Rock Bottom. The Rock Bottom. The count. The count. It's over. It's over. The WWF has won it.
The winner of the ball, The Rock. And thus, the surviving organization, the World Wrestling Federation.
How do you feel about that? You're out of work.
In a winner-take-all
Everything's fine.
elimination tag match, immediately after the match, the Alliance disbanded. The initial angle saw financial success for the WWF with the Invasion pay-per-view garnering a buy rate of 775,000, one of the largest non-WrestleMania buy rates in company history.
There you go.
To this day,
So
by
it's
the
a
way,
success.
that invasion.
Oh.
Well, because you're right, like that's what Vince thought. He's like, everything's fine. It's because people tuned into that invasion
Yeah.
pay-per-view because they thought that the big names, Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg, Sting, were going to come, and they never did.
Oh, they weren't there?
And yeah. After that, everything declined. Attendance declined. Everything declined.
They were still being paid to sit at
And,
home? Oh, that's okay.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
Exactly. So
Oh.
go ahead, Dave, because I want to
Oh,
free from
no.
Craig because
No,
you
no,
were
we're
onto
good. I mean,
something.
it's saying despite the commercial success, the angle received mixed reviews.
Oh, it did? Mixed
And
review?
it was considered historically a major disappointment by fans. and
Oh,
critics.
So,
historically,
yes,
this
um,
one?
yeah.
The Invasion pay-per-view had a massive buy rate, the biggest buy rate of any non-WrestleMania
The
pay-per-view
poster
up to
was
that point.
fucking awesome. It's half Shane's face, half,
Here's the-
half Vince's
Yeah,
face.
It's
It was
right here.
great.
I was just gonna say that's dope. That part is dope. Here's what I would say to that. Do you remember what Vince would always tell people? If I don't,
Where's
if
my steak
If I
wraps?
have to replace, well, there you go. If I have to replace someone with something because this person couldn't make it,
Get 2
or this
hours of sleep?
person,
What do you think?
he would say, I have to give him something.
Where
even
the pussy
better.
at?
He might have said all those things. But what I'm trying to get to is like whenever the whole, I mean, and this comes from
Would
like,
you take your laxative?
you know, yeah, all those.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Again, we're out of control.
Sorry, no, it's
I'm just saying, like,
Not now,
Vince,
Linda.
Vince always had a philosophy. Vince had a philosophy that if I have to replace something with something, it has to be even
Make
better
it
to
better.
make sure we take care of the house, we take care of the paper, whatever. This situation was solely reliant on the fact that everybody thought we'd have all these big names coming to this pay-per-view, and Vince just said, "Oh, well, if that's what they think, that's fine."
okay.
He
Okay,
everybody
Let-
knew,
Dave.
or everybody thought that was buying this pay-per-view that they were going to get all
we're
these
at
big
20.
names.
I
and
want to
Vince
end this episode
knew
by
that.
30 minutes. We're at 24 right now. Here's the
Okay.
deal.
All right.
You hit
Good
on
luck.
a lot of stuff. You hit a lot of just my penis is rock hard from what you said right now. So this is
Good
where
job,
we're going
Dave.
to freeform, right? So
You made his
you
dick
can't
hard.
just
Buffed
say
it up good. Yeah.
what is the missed opportunity here? You can't just say that they should. Well, they should have got Hogan. Okay, listen, everybody, stop. He was-
Let's stop
all
that.
the
That's-
older older guys by Hogan, Hall, Nash, and Goldberg, who wasn't old but didn't really grow up in wrestling and just wanted money, they're obviously going to stay. And Sting, Sting is old too. This point, well, he's not old in the sense of like what we ended up seeing him. He wrestled in his goddamn 60s, but I mean, like it. They were old. They're going to stay. They didn't want to get bought out. Booker T, DDP, even though DDP was old in age, but DDP knew that if I stay out, so DDP accepted the buyout of like 50 cents on the dollar. So did Booker T. Oh, excuse me. So did Booker T. Because they knew if we write out our contracts, we're going to be irrelevant because they weren't as over as Hogan, Hall, Nash, Goldberg, all those other people, Sting, all those other people. So
Sure.
you can't break that rule in our freeform here. The contracts could not have been bought because Hogan, Hall, Nash, and them are like 50 cents on the dollar. Let me think.
No.
No. We're going to stay
No.
at home. So they chose no. So that cannot change. So our missed opportunities, guys, and our rebooking assignment here is what could they have done? I'm going to go first to set the stage for you guys, and then I'll let you guys go.
Take
I
all the
think
good
at the
stuff
very
there.
least, I think, yes, they had Lance Storm. Yes, they had Booker T. Okay, maybe not the biggest names in the world. I think that they should have contacted Bischoff and been like, listen, I know you're in contract with AOL. Here's the deal. We will pay you 50 cents on the dollar, but we'll give you an additional bonus on top of that to justify pulling you out of your contract to get you over. We cannot do a WCW invasion angle without you. We could try to say that Shane bought it, blah, blah, blah. And we did say that or whatever. But you need to come and be the leader. I
That's
think
a really good point because
the missed
like, when he
opportunity,
did
if
come
you're going to
over-
throw
when
your
he-
money
when
at
he-
one person, if you're going to try to buy them out,
throw it to
and
Bischoff,
coax them out,
because
and
he
coax them out of that
He brought
contract.
Bischoff over way later, and that shit got
The next
way
year.
over.
Yeah, it was the next year. And so like, and it worked
Yeah.
because Bischoff was a great, but I would have hit Bischoff up right away going, I know you're sour on the wrestling business, but here's the deal. You didn't buy the company. I get it. We beat you out. Woohoo, whatever. So here's the deal. We will
Right.
buy you out from your contract, 50 cents on the dollar, but I'm going to make sure you get a big bonus, by the way, when you come aboard. If you push the WCW, I think that alone would have had a lot. It wouldn't have fixed everything. I'm going to let you guys talk after this, but it wouldn't have fixed everything. But Bischoff, I'm going to break that rule and say that they could have
I
probably
never
got
thought
Bischoff.
of that.
They wouldn't have got Hogan. They wouldn't have got
They
Hall.
could have.
They wouldn't
They
have
got
got
him.
Nash.
They got him a year later. Of course they could have.
But
They
get
got him a year later.
Bischoff,
They could have gotten
get
him. Yeah.
Bischoff and pay him out from his contract and say, listen, we're going to buy you out 50 cents on the dollar, but we're going to give you a massive bonus to do so. Come aboard.
Right.
You be the guy.
No,
that brings
I think that's
you don't
that's
do
a
Paul Heyman.
solid-
You don't do Paul Heyman. You don't do Shane McMahon. You don't do all that. You do
that's
Bischoff.
a solid fresh.
Even
take.
if Bischoff
'cause you
brings
don't-
in
you don't need to-
Booker T, even if Bischoff brings in Lance Storm, even if Bischoff brings in DDP,
right?
at least it's Bischoff.
Mhm.
But you run it as like an NWO angle. He's invading. You change it up a little bit. I think it would have done
Right.
much better. Go ahead, guys. Sorry.
I like it. Craig, you want to go?
No, I'll that's a great idea from Jess. I would go even a step
I do like
a step
I
further
didn't
and
even
say,
think about
okay, you
that.
can't
It was
get
good.
Bischoff because he's corporate and he's probably pissed off about the sale anyway because they stole the assets out
Right.
from under him. I would say
Maybe
Vince
maybe.
McMahon open his fucking pocketbook and get one guy. So you get either Flair or you get Sting. You pay one of those two, or you open your pocket for one guy to be kind of the face and lead because DDP wasn't enough, Booker wasn't enough, something, and then at least you have the scrubs all behind him. That parade in the 10-man tag of those WCW superstars, disgusting. What was it?
And they had Arn. They had Arn, Craig. So I'd say Flair is better off. You get Flair because you got Arn.
Well, they
and then
did get
you got-
Flair later, by the
you
way.
all
They
that.
got Flair in November or December of 2001.
I would have fucking opened my pocketbook for the
it's
face
right
of
there.
for Sting. For the fucking guy who's never been there before. Imagine the things at least
You
you
know
would
what,
have done as
Craig?
the face.
You said it. My secondary thought that I didn't bring. You opened up a pocketbook for Sting or Hogan.
Yeah.
Hogan's your guy.
Yeah.
Hogan was the guy.
Yeah.
Well,
you
I
opened your
disagree with Sting a little bit, only because like Sting's the ultimate face, and I think they should have
Well,
gone.
no, I'm not saying they bring Sting. Craig's right. Don't bring Sting in as a heel. Bring him as in the face. But like, it's either Sting or
but
Hogan. Hogan's the guy.
but if
Hogan
you-
had the lineage. It
but
was
if you
the same,
you bring Sting in as a face to defeat WWE when they're not gonna lose.
And
it doesn't make sense.
the arrogance of Vince to try and it must have been something legal to not use the assets they already had of the helicopter logo or the old WCW or the rebranded WCW, but to
Maybe.
completely rebrand to that shitty red, awful thing. There was nothing. There was no nostalgia there
yeah.
at all that made you reminded of
I don't get
anything
it. Yeah.
WCW.
Good point, Craig. Good point. If you bought it, why don't you own the logos? That doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But I can see Vince going like, I'm making it my own. Fuck you. Like, dude,
He
you own
didn't
it, though. What the
respect
fuck?
it. There was no
What's wrong?
nostalgia. There was no nod to what it was.
And by the way,
Craig,
we
right
went
there.
to
honestly,
WrestleMania
right there,
in
like,
Texas, and we saw the WCW logo just fine in Texas.
we're at the
and we took
30-minute mark,
pictures.
and I
They
think you
owned
said it right there. The lack of respect for the WCW brand is what caused all the bad decisions. If he had respect,
Yeah.
he would have tried to make it stand on its own for a while and been like, well, we have to get Bischoff or Hogan. He knew Hogan's number. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Can I-
they knew each
Right, yeah, I
other.
think
It's weird.
had
I
it
don't
last time I
remember. I
checked.
don't remember how, but Vince and Hogan
Yeah.
knew each other. I don't remember how,
Yeah.
but they knew each other. To get Hogan
Yeah.
or Bischoff to
I
come
mean,
back or both,
you only spent
Just open it for all
$2.4
to get
million.
both.
You
Yeah.
saved fucking $8 million in
Right.
buying the the ashes of it.
You can
fucking invest
buy
in it.
Hulk and Bischoff. Yeah, you can buy Hulk and Bischoff from their contract and have them on your television to bring
Sure.
WCW to the forefront.
And I will say, like, it was all like the thinking of getting Arn on commentary, like at least a nod to NWA and that kind of thing. I get it, but Hudson and Arn
that
being
wasn't
never
WCW though.
fucking no. I mean, you're right.
Yeah.
But like
You get
something,
you get,
but
you
that's
get Flair
in my
and you
head
bring
or
Arn in
nostalgia.
as
And people, you had
unfortunate.
NWA versus WWE. There was
here's my-
no respect, no tradition, no.
Right.
Here's my.
You know what, Craig?
here's-
I'm actually I didn't know what our freeform would go here or whatever, but you nailed it. There was no respect.
Mhm.
There was no respect for
Yeah,
WCW.
that's all true.
It. Sure.
Here's my-
Literally and
Of course.
figuratively.
Here's my one thing,
It's
because
just
you
literally
knew it was
and
gonna
figuratively.
disband at the end anyway. At the end anyway, the only thing I would say on top of that I would have done, as soon as you bring in a Flair, you bring in a Bischoff, you bring in even DDP, whatever, and then what happens is you get all of the former WCW guys, the Perry Saturns, the Chris Jerichos, the Eddie Guerreros that are already there, the Chris Benoits that are already there, and they run in to help the WWF, and they immediately turn around and go, fuck you, and they destroy these guys. And then you created a real heel faction. That
you
is
have to make
former WCW.
exactly. That's a good point too, Dave. That's great. You have to make
and everybody goes,
an
oh crap, I
affiliation.
thought these were WWE
You have to make
guys.
a love
Yeah.
for WCW. That these guys come. I'm coming to WCW's defense. I love it. And if you show that
Right.
passion, then you're gonna be like, oh my, like.
Could you
WCW
imagine
is
if
a brand.
Jericho joined in that mix?
All,
Jericho was
all
like, I'm-
WWF painted WCW as in the end was a brand we beat.
Yes. Yes.
That's it. That's
Feeble,
all they said that they
feeble,
were.
old and
They
feeble.
never painted
Yeah.
WCW as a brand that beat us one time and should be respected. That's a good. That's a
If
good.
they embraced
you
it
guys.
for just a minute,
Hate you both.
yeah, that's beautiful. Well, but the Bischoff
honestly,
thing, man, I got to tell you, I'd never thought
Vince
of that. And
doesn't
he was
give a
there a
fuck
year
about
later.
what
So good.
thought the dream invasion angle would be. It doesn't matter. He never thought of WCW as the second.
Yeah.
It was destroyed anyway. It was never
He thought,
gonna.
he thought of them as trash. Yeah. Right.
Thanks, Vince.
Right.
There was no other
100%.
competition. It
Fuck
was
you,
done.
Vince.
It was already
You're a-
done. He didn't
you're a
need
piece of-
anybody.
The ECW idea looked cool for like a second too. It's just they just
For
couldn't work
literally
out.
1 second. You're correct.
Yeah, well, literally 1 second. For audio fans, give us on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeartRadio, or watch our videos on YouTube at Our Wrestling Channel, and check out exclusive content on Daily Motion at Our
fuck
Wrestling
off. No,
Podcast.
don't do that.
On social media, give us a follow on Instagram at O.W.P2019
Yeah,
or
okay.
on Facebook at Our Wrestling Podcast. For Jess, Craig, and Dave, this is the O.W.P signing off. Have a good one.